St. Louis, Missouri is a metropolitan with a population of nearly 3 million. And just like in other cities throughout the United States, homeless men and women lead difficult lives.
So homelessness in St. Louis is a big problem. And it's especially big when we think about families at the margins. So we know that there are about 1,000 people in the area who will use a homeless shelter at some point during the year. The number of families and individuals who are not using shelters but are one paycheck away or one inability to pay a gas bill away, that number is a lot bigger. It is a sizable problem in St. Louis.
St. Patrick's Center is a non-profit organization which helps the homeless by providing training and finding employment for them.
The stereotypical image that people have of the homeless as somebody who lives under a bridge or in a cardboard box or is, begging for money is really a small percentage of the people that we see, maybe about 16 to 17%. So the face of homelessness that people typically think of is just a teeny part of the problem and a teeny part of what we can offer a solution to. A lot of these people are more marginally, maybe they've lost a job, maybe they can't pay their utility bills, so maybe they move in with a sister or an aunt or a relative of some kind, a friend, and they're between jobs, and there's a lot more of that sort of thing that happens than there is that stereotypical thing. It's, if you have a part-time job, it's hard to pay the rent. So a lot of it is they have a part-time job, they don't know, they may be veterans but don't know they need help getting all the benefits that they need. They may have a part-time job, they may want better skills. We have a lot of programs here that can help people with their job readiness, resume, sprucing up their resume, things like that.
Fortunately, there are people who are working to help get the homeless back into homes. Ashley and Annie is the owner of Feed Your Vitality, a healthy meal delivery and catering service. Her company has given employment opportunities to clients of St. Patrick's Center to train them. Chris was one of those people who were hired by Ashley and is now a manager at a cafe.
I think Chris is probably, he literally came to the interview crying because we were able to give him an opportunity, and it was just after he had actually had a really rough go of it but leading up to that, and was kind of at his wit's end, had a wealth of experience in his background, had some really solid restaurant experience, but because he had run into some trouble when he was younger, no one would give him a chance.
With Ashley's help, we were able to talk to Chris about his story at the cafe where he now works.
In the early, I guess like the late mid-80s, I got involved with drugs, crack cocaine. And I got to the point in life I would always get a job, but I couldn't keep a job because of my drug abuse. And so one particular day, I was with I call a drug buddy. And we was involved in robbery. Although I was not actually the one who robbed the person, but I was the lookout guy. And to sum it up, it cost me 20 years sentence for robbery. So while incarcerated, I spent out of the 20 years, 11 years, 4 months, and 3 days. 2 weeks before my 28th birthday in 1992. So I woke up in prison 2 weeks later, 28, for my 20th birthday. Mm-hmm. It was like devastating because I knew that I shouldn't have been there. And so one day, it clicked. It took 20 years. It took 11 years, 4 months, 3 days. Because the lifestyle I was living on drugs, I could have been dead. I should have been dead. Truly. When I came home, I managed to get a job at a hotel. I had all the benefits. I was there for 8 years. and I lost my job. I lost my job in September 2011, and I became homeless. You know, I took out my 401k money. I had an apartment at the time. I paid up my rent. I paid off my vehicle. You know, my unemployment ran out. For 2 years, I was unemployed. I couldn't get a job, and at my age, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard.
So how was Chris able to rise from homelessness?
During the time when I was unemployed, those old negative thoughts come back in your mind because you become desperate. You become hopeless. Because who wants to be homeless without a job? Because I went through so much, and it was hard for me to find a job. But my fiance at the time, she told me about St. Patrick's Center. She said, "Chris, once you go to St. Patrick's Center, they have a culinary program. And you have these misconceptions. St. Patrick's Center, I don't want to go to St. Patrick's Center. People down there got issues. So as time went on, still can't find a job. And so one day I say, what I got to lose? What I got to lose? I came in, was assigned a case manager. He put me where I do, cook.
And because he got that opportunity to work with us, he ended up getting a second opportunity because someone was able to say, wow, this guy's really a great worker, which he is. And that's what led to his full-time position, and now he's in management. So pretty huge shift from feeling like he can't get a job. When we started him as a dishwasher, and it became very apparent that his skill set was such that he was cooking for us in no time and doing all sorts of things.
Parker and Andy, he was my supervisor at the kiosk. He talked to Ashley about bringing me in. So I worked, she hired me, brought me in. And actually I was working 2 jobs at the time. I was working Ashley part of the week, and I was working at the St. Patrick's Center part of the week.
So there are individuals like Chris who are able to escape the quagmire of homelessness through hard work and help. But to really solve the issue of homelessness, we must address the cause of the problem. To learn more about this, we talked to Dr. Patrick Fowler, an expert on homelessness at Washington University's Brown School of Social Work.
At its heart, it's a housing problem. Homelessness is a housing problem. The lack of abilities to connect to affordable housing is at its heart the cause of homelessness. We know this. There are lots of other factors that put certain individuals at higher risk for homelessness, but in a tight housing market where people can't afford to live, you're going to see homelessness, and St. Louis is one of those places. So when we think about the reasons for homelessness, we kind of go in a funnel. So there's the broad levels of lack of affordable housing, lack of jobs, poor educational system. Those are what put people at risk for homelessness. And then within those levels, there are individual and family characteristics that heighten that risk. So people who with substance abuse problems will have a harder time maintaining stable housing. People who have experienced trauma or violence have a harder time. People with less connection to family, that's a big one, that they don't have the family supports to fall back on. They will be at higher risk for homelessness. Lack of a safety net, a social safety net, is also an issue. So if a person is not able to connect to needed disability services or cash assistance, that puts them at risk for homelessness.
So if housing is the problem, why can't more housing simply be built? The problem with St. Louis is that there is a lot of abandoned housing, but to rehabilitate these properties, developers or the city must make investments. However, in poorer areas where homelessness is more prevalent, there is less of an incentive for businesses to invest in a community that they are not sure is going to stabilize. Next, we asked Dr. Fowler how he thinks the general public views homelessness.
What I would guess is that there probably are 2 major opinions. One, get a job, and the other is, well, I work at a soup kitchen through my church. I'm doing something. Both are not going to end homelessness. It's not as easy as saying get a job, because if they could get a job, they would get one. So they could. There's lots of reasons for not having a job. It could be, you're in between jobs, or you were in a job and the place closed, or it could be you don't have the skills. And unfortunately, so this is the connection between homelessness and education. Supporting an educated society is really, really important to giving people tools to get a job. We can't use charity to get our way out of homelessness. That's putting a Band-Aid on a sore and not addressing the illness.
I think people don't realize that homelessness is closer than they think, and that they might be closer to it than they think. You think about what happens when you lose a job. Think about how much money you might have until it becomes difficult to pay the bills, and not having skills to find a new job, not even knowing how to write or improve a resume. It hits closer to home than people think. And I think that's the biggest misconception.
So, what should be done to correctly solve this issue?
There are a number of services for homelessness, and a number of, not so much anymore. There are ideas of how to prevent homelessness. One of them is to provide homeless individuals with public housing. Public housing is a program run by the city, funded by the federal government, that subsidize housing, so you don't pay more than 30% of your rent. This is a really, really good idea, and we know that this prevents homelessness. It prevents homelessness with at-risk individuals, with families. It's a good idea. The problem is that there is a lack of public housing to go around in St. Louis.
There's a continuum of housing, and to just once people get started in housing, when they go from living with someone or living on the streets to a transitional housing, to keep them moving. Sometimes they lose momentum. There needs to be a way to keep the momentum going, so that once you get to a point where you're in a transitional housing, that you move to permanent housing. And by permanent, you don't mean 6 months, you mean 1 year, 2 years, 5 years.
So as an individual, it's probably most important to be aware, understand the issue, and educate others.
What people can do is find organizations that help, rather than they see somebody who looks desperate on the street and give them a $20 bill. Don't do that. Try to find an organization that can help, that have services to get people off the streets and to get them into a good home and to get them a better job. That's a better use of those $20 than to hand it to somebody.
So if we really are truly wanting to end homelessness, we have to prevent some of the social inequalities that are driving it. So get a job is not going to end homelessness.
Clearly, homelessness is a complex issue that will not be easily solved. It will take the education of everyday people, the investment of companies in housing, and the increase in the availability of government programs to resolve homelessness.